Hello friends, I'm Dr. Eram Rao. I work as an associate professor with the Department of Food Technology at Bhaskaracharya College of Applied Sciences, University of Delhi. Today I'm going to walk you through a very interesting presentation which is based on food allergies. We're going to look at the various segments including causes, clinical symptoms, tests and treatments for food allergy, what are the remedies with the use of hypoallergenic foods, role of food industry, and of course conclusions. Did you know that globally more than 250 million people suffer from food allergies? We are undergoing what is called as the food allergy epidemic. Roughly 32 million Americans till date are suffering from food allergies. In fact, 1 out of 13 children and 1 out of 10 adults are allergic. More than 51% of them have severe cases of allergies reported, and in case of kids it is about 42%. Food allergy cases have risen by 50% in the past decade, with more than 700 rise in hospitalizations due to anaphylaxis. Did you also know that about 3% of Indians have got food allergies, and majority of them are under the age of 40 years. Food allergies cause roughly 30,000 emergency treatments and about 100 to 200 deaths per year. 300 million Indians are already suffering from peanut allergies. So what are the causes of food allergies? Where have they come from? It's because of the genetic manipulation that some new proteins have been introduced and they have gone wrong with our system. It could be due to environmental factors like what we call it as the hygiene hypothesis. That means we are not allowing the children to play with various kinds of the diverse microbes, and that is why you find that in super hygienic conditions, if you compare between urban and rural kids, it is the susceptibility in the urban kids which is higher to these particular allergies as compared to the rural counterparts. There have been immense modification in the supply chain during production, processing and preservation. Food ingredients have been sourced from various countries today to produce a simple food product. There have been lifestyle changes and also eating behaviors. For instance, novel food processing technologies like, for instance, food irradiation or misuse of microwaves, etc. could also lead to these food allergic problems. Publicity of symptoms associated with food have also been reported to be associated with food allergies psychosomatically. So what is food allergy then? Food allergies are abnormal responses of the immune system to an individual, and usually these particular foods are containing a protein. Food sensitivities are a general term which have been used for perhaps defining or explaining food allergies. Then you also have food intolerances. What are these? We do have heard people suffering from lactose intolerance, and that is not a food allergy. That is because there is an absence of an enzyme in the body because of which lactose, which is a milk sugar, cannot be hydrolyzed, and as a result you have bloating, feeling of discomfort when you have a cup of milk, which actually goes away when you have, let's say, curds or yogurts. So let's understand how food allergy is different from other adverse reactions to food. Food allergy is a reaction where the body's immune system is directly involved. There is an allergen in the food which is recognized as a foreign body, and that is why your body goes and produces antibodies to check the infection. These are then seen as allergic reactions in terms of wheezing, coughing, swelling of lips, reddening, urticaria, vomiting, diarrhea, etc. In this particular food allergy, you find there are two types. One is immediate hypersensitivity reactions, and the other one is delayed hypersensitivity reactions. In both these, your immunoglobulins E reactions are involved, and that is why you find that even a trace a whiff or a flavor of an allergen a person is sensitive to would have immediate reactions in terms of respiratory tract or skin reactions. So if you look at the classification of the food sensitivities, they can be classified as food allergies, which are further divided into the ones which are immunological and are IgE mediated, and that leads to immediately what is called as an anaphylactic shock. Whereas you also have the non-IgE mediated or delayed hypersensitivity reactions. So these are not immediate. For instance, celiac disease or gluten enteropathy, which gives you a little bit of time. Then you have food intolerances, like we just spoke about lactose intolerance, which is a classic example of food intolerance. These are non-immunological, which means that your immune system does not get involved in this particular reaction after the consumption of the food. We are also familiar with a word called as food toxicity. This is because of the natural toxins or acquired present in the food leads to an adverse reaction. And of course, we are also familiar with another word which is very often synonymically used as food aversion. That means we have strong dislike towards a particular food commodity. Further, we are going to understand what are the basic differences and where do we understand that what are these particular allergens are coming from. So in the world today, we are talking about some 8 most common food allergens which happen to be coming from peanut, wheat, soya bean, shellfish and fish, egg, milk, as well as tree nuts. If you look at the prevalence of some of the common food allergies, you find that the peanut allergy is particularly very high rated. That means about 25% of the world population as we speak is suffering from peanut allergy, followed by milk allergy. You must have been familiar with a lot of infants and children having what is called as cow's milk allergy. This is a challenge because these young ones who are dependent on milk as their basic necessity are deprived of it. So we have to understand that what are the substitutes which are available and how can we rear these particular infants. Shellfish poisoning is also equally popular, and about 17% odd population of the world suffers from it. Followed by, of course, we have tree nut allergies, which will include like almonds, cashew, etc. Egg proteins, also a lot of people are allergic to, but the scientific data says that kids who are allergic to egg early in their life mostly outgrow it by the age of their adolescence. Then you have finfish allergies, wheat, classically known as gluten enteropathy or celiac disease. Today it is called as hypersensitivity also. Soya allergy is also equally popular. So if you look at food intolerance, you would find that in the market you would have formulas which are lactose free. Why? Because these are the individuals who are born with a deficient enzyme by the name beta galactosidase, and that is why the milk sugar is not broken down in their body. And this leads to what is called as bloating, or they have malabsorption of the milk and feeling of discomfort. This can easily be rectified by consuming curds. Why? Because lactose is then broken down and it is then absorbed by the body. There are other chemicals as well today which many people have got allergic to. Like for instance, you have salicylates, you have histamines, and you also have serotonin. Food preservatives such as sulfites and sodium benzoates are also on the radar, and people are finding problems associated with it. There are some flavorants like monosodium glutamate, MSG. This is another one which is now to be also declared on the label, as many people are allergic to this particular flavor enhancer. You also have aspartame, which is an artificial sweetener, and similarly you have some colors like orange color tartrazine. Food toxicity is an adverse food reaction, and this is because of the presence of some natural toxins within the food, like you find greening of the potatoes, which is called as glycoalkaloids. Now these potatoes, if consumed in large amount, could have an adverse effect in the body. It is also said that people who are suffering from arthritis, if they consume too much of solanine or glycoalkaloid ridden potatoes, would have pain in their joints. We also have a classic example of cyanogenic glycosides, which are typically present in beans and almonds. Especially if you've consumed Indian almonds, you find that some of them are bitter. It is not a good idea to gulp them down. Ideally, it should be spitted out. There are studies to quote that if a young child consumes about 13 or 14 almonds in one go, it has actually led to the loss of hearing. So, it is important that these particular toxic constituents from the food have to be looked into very carefully. And yes, we are all familiar with bacterial contamination as well, which lead to food toxicities. You have other kind of naturally occurring toxins, like you have favism disease due to the consumption of faba beans, and this leads to a metabolic disorder. Similarly, you also have latherism, which is a disease commonly occurring in India when we consume kesri dal in large quantities. Most of the problems related to latherisms have been put into place because we have been able to detoxify that particular pulse with the toxin thanks to the researchers of our country. Now you have a word called as food aversions. There are some people who are psychologically convinced that they cannot perhaps digest or they cannot tolerate few foods. However, when we subject them to any kind of allergy test, the tests are negative. This is classically referred to what is called as food aversion. This is more psychosomatic than actually has any pathological occurrence. Now look at the symptoms of the immunoglobulin E mediated food allergies. It can range from gastrointestinal to skin or cutaneous to respiratory and others. Now please remember that these particular symptoms develop very quickly within minutes to an hour from the consumption of the food, and these can be lethal. They can be life-threatening. So they have to be taken very seriously. What are the clinical manifestations? You find that after consuming some of the foods, it can lead to what is called as an oral allergy syndrome. What does this mean? That means the moment you consume this particular food, you would find some kind of a localized reaction around your mouth, lips, and in the throat. This is what is called as your oral allergy syndrome. That is the first warning, has to be taken very seriously, and you have to look at what precautions have to be taken and what medical remedy has to be looked into. Then you have another one which is called as exercise-induced anaphylaxis. This is typically seen in those individuals who, after consuming wheat-based products, go in for exercise. Once the body temperature rises, what you find is that the metabolism of the allergen is sped up, and it is characterized by flushing, shortness of breath, fainting, and this can occur from about a few hours to even 24 hours after the ingestion of the food. The last one is very, very lethal. It is called as anaphylactic shock. This is the most serious manifestation of all the food allergies. This involves gastrointestinal tract, your cutaneous or skin, respiratory tract, and also your cardiovascular system. All the symptoms develop simultaneously or in combination, and even death can occur because of the respiratory failure. And that is why such an individual has to be immediately rushed for emergency medical help. This classically happens in foods such as peanuts, tree nuts, shellfish, milk, eggs, and fish. So is there a way we can diagnose if you're suffering from food allergies? Yes, there are reputed tests. Like for instance, you have a RAST test. This is radioallergosorbent test. It is actually done on the skin, and what they measure is the reaction to your IgE immunoglobulins. And this is typically done for the food allergies which have an immediate reaction to the IgE. There is another SAGE test which is more comprehensive, and this is done for the delayed immunoresponse of the IgE. Now this test has achieved about 80% of the success in diagnosing the food allergies. One must remember that there is no foolproof test to tell you that 100% screening of all allergens for an individual can be done. However, as research is progressing, we find that some other tests are coming to the limelight. You do have controlled challenge test. Often this is conducted blind or double blind. We also have food cytotoxic blood test and sublingual provocation food testing. Now what does all these words mean? Which means what they're trying to do is that people who've been suffering from food allergies, small micro amounts of that particular food is diluted and placed under the tongue. There's gradual immunity which is being looked into to be developed, so that over a course of time the person becomes more perhaps resistant to having a sudden outbreak of an anaphylactic shock. The treatments, in the conventional treatment, the whole idea is to immediately block the immune response. Now this is usually done with the help of steroids, both systemic and topical. Now we do understand that there are side effects involved with this. In case of an anaphylactic shock or a reaction, epinephrine, which is a naturally occurring adrenaline, is injected immediately into the thigh muscle or the vein. Usually such people carry a pen of epinephrine in their bags, because the moment they witness any kind of changes, they can look for medical remedy themselves. Besides, scientists have found out that vitamin C is generally called as an anti-allergy vitamin, because it helps to stabilize the mast cells which react immediately to the antigen when the allergen is ingested in the body, and they are the ones which are responsible for the release of histamine, which is a chemical. It's another kind of an amino acid, and other allergy mediating chemicals. But we must all remember that food allergies could be life-threatening. Some of the major ones are, you have cow's milk allergy, which is affecting about 2 to 7.5% of infants. Now in case of milk allergy, it is the casein protein fraction of the milk, and also which is present in a number of milk products like cheeses, is the causative allergen. Unfortunately, it is not heat liable, which means that even after boiling the milk, it is resistant, and that is why we have to look for alternative milk formulas to feed such infants and babies. The symptoms are including the GI tract, which is your diarrhea, vomiting, abdominal pain, eczema, which is classically seen on the skin. You have running nose, rhinitis, sinusitis, etc. Soybean allergy is also affecting about 0.5% of the general population, and about 3 to 6% of the children in the world are affected by it. The big problem with soybean is that there are about 15 proteins which act as allergen, and that is why it is a big challenge. It needs to be labeled very clearly on all commodities which are processed. And the clinical symptoms in this case are also enterocolitis to atopic eczema and immediate multi-system IgE mediated reactions. Wheat allergy, we know that the allergens are again protein in nature. They happen to be albumin, globulin, gliadin and glutenin. The reaction is caused the moment the wheat is ingested. In fact, today, a number of individuals in the world are suffering from what is called as baker's asthma, which means not consuming just by inhalation of the wheat flour also, their bodies can react adversely towards it. The classic symptoms which are seen are skin urticaria, atopic eczema on the skin, oral allergy syndrome, abdominal pain, vomiting, asthma, and also allergic rhinitis. As I've told you that peanut allergies incidence is the largest in the world. This is a very serious and a lifelong allergy which affects both kids, young as well as the adults. The clinical symptoms are acute hives, or what we call it as urticaria, severe swelling of face, bronchospasm, that is difficulty in breathing, and leading to anaphylaxis. The problem is, again, these particular allergens are heat stable. So even if you roast the peanuts, the allergen does not go away. Allergens in soya beans and peanuts are quite similar, and a patient who develops IgE of any one of this particular commodity is likely to have a cross reaction with the other, which means it is a statutory warning for those who are suffering from soy allergy to also look out for peanut allergy. Seafood allergies are also very prominent. They are also very fast acting, and they may not give you much time. One of the reasons is that these particular potential allergens are very, very heat stable. The best known allergen today is called as the allergen M, which is typically seen in codfish and also in crustaceans. Reactions would appear between 2 to 6 hours of ingestion or even after inhaling the vapors from the cooked food. You can see the symptoms can range from skin rashes to swelling of lips to nausea, vomiting, asthma, dizziness, and in some cases would lead to even called as anaphylactic shock or death. That is why whenever you are eating new foods for the first time, especially when they are coming from the seafood, you must take small bites, chew it well, give yourself some time before you have the second bite. This is how that will help you from leading to any kind of adverse reactions. So all problems need to have remedies, and that is why we have some alternatives or remedies for the allergic patients. But please remember that anybody who's suffering from an allergy, the best remedy is precaution, which means strict avoidance of the specific food or the protein. So what we call it is actually an elimination diet. Read the labels very carefully and do not take anything which is for granted. One of the ways out is the use of hypoallergenic foods. This can be done either through enzymatically or through genetic manipulation. Heat or high processing of the foods by use of high pressure processing is another alternative of digesting the proteins. It's been reported in literature that some of the allergies are because of not digesting the food properly. Some of the lifestyle diseases are because of not chewing the food well. So what happens is that macro particles of food lead to actually indigestion, and sometimes they're treated as antigens by the body. So the subsequent time when you're eating the same food, this antigen is going to lead to what is called as an allergic reaction. That is why the old saying, chew the food at least 32 times before you gulp it down, or before you at least partially digest it, is one of the important methods of keeping you away from food sensitivities. Similarly, the third option is to manufacture or make use of functional foods and also with immunosuppressive activities. We are familiar with prebiotics, probiotics, which improve the gut health. So digestion is one particular area, plus the gut health is extremely important. Leaky gut has been reported to be one of the reasons of leading to hypersensitivities of the food. So how are these particular formulas manufactured? They are a necessity for those babies who are born with these particular allergies, like we've looked into cow's milk allergy. So you have to give them an infant formula so that they can sustain themselves by, by being fed on it. So one of the processes is by the use of a heat treatment and also through enzymatic hydrolysis. Now in this case, classically what is done is that from the pancreas of the animals, which is typically used in the medical sciences also, trypsin and chymotrypsin, these are protein hydrolyzing enzymes. They are used to actually hydrolyze beta-lactoglobulin, which is called as LG, and beta-lactoalbumin, which is called as LA, of the whey proteins, to reduce the allergenicity to even 100 to 1000 times as reported in the animal feeding studies. The other method is the use of high pressure processing to denature the beta-lactoglobulins or the allergens which are present in the cow's milk, and this is how this will help us to reduce the allergenicity. The whey proteins are treated by high pressure of 200 to 700 megapascals before, during and after the enzymatic hydrolysis of the trypsin. This is how it will render the milk formula hypoallergenic and better tolerated by the infants. Alternatively, it is suggested that goat milk is one of the best substitute to be given to those who are suffering from cow's milk allergy. The reason is the high protein, non-protein nitrogen and phosphate in CAPRINE milk, and this gives you a higher buffering capacity, which means this milk is far more easily digested by the human enzymes as compared to the cow's milk. Then you also have hypoallergenic wheat. Genetic engineering is one of the methods. So the protein which is used for the digestion of the wheat is called as thyroredoxin. This thyroredoxin content can be enhanced in the genetic manipulation of the wheat, and that is how the allergic component of the wheat can be brought down. Through enzymatically, hypoallergenic wheat flour can also be treated with enzymes, and the enzymes over here are for starch allergens, it is cellulase. For the proteinish one, it is actinase enzymes which will help in hydrolyzing the proteins. Also, the use of omega-5 gliadin-free wheat flour is one of the latest approaches which have been used to make hypoallergenic wheat flour. But as I've said, please remember that there is no curative treatment for wheat-dependent exercise-induced anaphylactics. So that is why you have to actually stay away from the wheat. Let's understand what is the role of the industry to manage the food processes in such a fashion that we can mitigate the food allergens. The most and the significant point is the complete commitment of the top management. This can certainly help in the reduction of the incidence of allergies in the products because they would formulate policies which will help them implement in their plants. So one of the ways is well-documented allergen policy, accurate, transparent, clean labels. What's in, it is on it. Operational strategies to eliminate cross-contamination, such as implementation of FSMS, food safety management systems, training and awareness of employees, and very important, effective consumer communication. Reading labels is the key to maintain control over the allergy. The food processor has to declare allergens in the product on the label. There is no scope for ambiguity on the labels because that can prove to be lethal for those who will consume that product. The labeling laws, although require disclosure of all the important allergens, but however, the law does not regulate advisory labeling, which means sometimes you read contains or may contain, which studies have shown that increasingly being ignored by food allergic consumers. So we can conclude by saying that food allergy is a serious nutritional problem which was earlier afflicting only the industrialized nations, but it is fast catching up with the developing world. At present, there is no effective medical treatment. The labels are a good source of consumer education and assist them to choose right food and food ingredients. However, the big hope for such allergenic patients is hypoallergenic foods, and a major breakthrough in this field is expected with advances in genetic engineering. Alright, so let's sum up and check your knowledge. The first question which comes to you is, what are food allergies? You've been given 4 options. Which is the correct one? A, which is food allergies are an immunologic reaction resulting from the ingestion, contact or even inhalation of a food or food additive. Question number 2, what are the probable causes of food allergies in the world? You have 4 choices. The answer is all of the above. It is because of the new protein manipulation due to genetics, environmental factors, lifestyle and eating behaviors. So all these are responsible for food allergies. Anaphylactic shock is characterized by, you have again 4 options, by gastrointestinal tract, skin, respiratory tract and cardiovascular system, or local tissue reaction on the lips, in the mouth and throat. C, by flushing, urticaria or itching, or all of the above. The right answer is gastrointestinal tract, skin, respiratory as well as cardiovascular systems. All of these are involved in anaphylactic shock. It is extreme reaction of the body and it does not give you much time. The second one is the oral allergy syndrome, and the third one is exercise induced one. So the first A is the correct answer. Which food allergen has the highest occurrence in the world? That means, which is that particular food which is highly allergic to most of the individuals in the world? A, tree nuts, B, shellfish, C, soya bean, or D, peanut. I'm sure you know this one. The correct answer is peanut allergy. Maximum number of the people in the world suffer from peanut allergies. Next, which diagnostic test is used for immediate immunoglobulin E food allergies? Is it the RAST test, or the RASH test, or the ELISA test, or all of these? The right answer is A, RAST test. What does CMA stands for? A, cow's milk allergy, B, casein milk allergy, C, cultured milk allergy, or D, all of the above. It is cow's milk allergy. Most infants and children are born with this particular allergy. Next question, which is the best accepted treatment for food allergy reactions? Is it A, use of hypoallergenic foods, B, strict avoidance of the specific food or protein, C, use of functional foods with immunosuppressive activity, and D, all of the above? I'm sure you know this one. B, the best and the only treatment which is foolproof is strict avoidance of the specific food or the protein which you're allergic to. What can the food industry do to contain or mitigate food allergy? A. Have a well-documented allergen policy with strict adherence to labeling requirements. B. Operational strategies to eliminate cross-contamination. C. Capacity building of employees with effective consumer communication. Or D. All of the above. So the correct answer is all of the above. The food industry has a very important role to play and they need to follow this in absolute spirit. Next question, infants suffering from cow's milk allergy are recommended an alternative milk. Which one is this? A. Is it camel milk, goat milk, sheep milk or buffalo's milk? The correct answer is goat milk. Why? Because it has high buffering capacity. The proteins are easily digested and that is why sensitivity to this milk is the least. Which chemical is released in the body in response to allergens? Is it histamine? Is it epinephrine? Is it thyroxine or serotonin? The correct answer is histamine. Thank you.